Welcome to Living a Graceful Life. And no, Denise doesn't have a whole new look. Denise is attending a joyful family event. And so let's all send her good wishes, knowing Denise, she's having a great time. I'm your host today. I'm Joanna Klein. I have a show on Win Win Women also called Journey to Legacy. And I am the creator and facilitator of an online life story writing course for women in their third act, which is also called Journey to Legacy. So when Denise starts her show, she says that the purpose of living a graceful life is to remind you that it's never too late to begin to create the life that you want to live. And our topic today just so happens to be creativity. We have a special guest who is going to be talking about her new book called Creativity Unleashed. So have you ever looked at someone that you know, the artwork that they've done or something that they've written, listened to poetry or someone playing a musical instrument and wish that you could be as creative? When you were a kid, do you look back and go, oh my gosh, I used to be so playful and creative, and you have this longing of like, I want some of that juice? Do you ever remember a time where someone just basically zapped the creativity out of you by telling you your artwork wasn't any good, or your dancing wasn't good any good, or your voice didn't sound good, and that you took that on and believed that, and it stifled your creativity from that point? Well, our guest today is going to tell us how to bring back more creativity in our life. Amber Quilimalani Benici is an award-winning artist, author, and founder of Woman Unleashed, a community dedicated to helping women connect to their creative spirit, to feel on purpose, happy, and free. She supports women through retreats and online programs to live an inspired creative life. Amber hosts the Woman Unleashed online retreat, which has drawn over 100,000 women since it first began. When she's not teaching or coaching, you'll find her on the big island of Hawaii, painting, writing, or hanging out with her husband and boys. And now she is the author of a new book, Creativity Unleashed. Now, Amber's a very special person, obviously, but she's also very special to me. When I decided I was finally ready to become entrepreneurial, to stop working for other people and to launch a business, I hired Amber as my business coach. I had known her before, I'd admired her work. And so I connected with her, and she was the one who inspired me to start being creative through my entrepreneurial desires, and really helped me tap into the fact that I was creative. And she was behind my efforts to do an online retreat called Sassy, Sexy, and Sixy. And that was my launch into the online world, and the beginning of my entrepreneurship. So I am deeply honored and thrilled to be interviewing Amber today. Amber, welcome.
Thank you so much, Joanna, and aloha, everyone. So nice to be here today. I love you. Thank you for I'm like, oh, we have history. We have history. And I was sharing you with Denise that we've known each other 15 years now. It's amazing. Yeah, the connection.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And your connection with Denise came how?
Yeah, Denise and I met years ago when I was doing my NIA training, my NIA Blue Belt training. I was pregnant, or no, I just had my first son, Sage, and I was in North Carolina, and we had met there, and she had these great pants. She was wearing these great flowy pants, and I'm like, I must know you. I love you and your pants, and so it started from there, our love affair.
That's so great. You know, you're not the first one I've heard has commented on Denise's clothes as as an attraction. So that's great. I love it.
Mhm.
And I want to just make a statement to those watching. I have done everything in my power to the point that I'm actually hardwired right now to the internet, but there has been some delay that I'm aware of, and I apologize for that that's showing up. So hopefully one of these days I'm going to get this figured out. So Amber, I had a chance to take a look at your new book, and it was so much fun to read it. And I thought that we might start with this whole topic of creativity and having it sucked out of us, because you tell a very amazing story, beautiful story in there about a teacher responding to some artwork that you did when you were young and how that impacted you.
Mm.
So I thought maybe we could start with that story.
Yeah. I Well, for me, I was young, so I must have been, 7 or 8 years old. And I remember that when I was young, I used to love to create. I mean, like all of us do. And I would draw these stories of ponies. It was like Nancy Drew meets ponies, right? I was really into horses at the time. And I remember my teacher, we had some sort of thing in school where we were supposed to ask, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, oh, I want to be a writer. And, and the teacher said, well, I don't remember her exact response, but I remember thinking afterwards, like, you can't, you can't make money being an artist. And for some reason, at that point, I started looking around at other people, other kids, and I was noticing, wow, my drawings don't look like their drawings, and my drawings don't look realistic, and actually, maybe I'm not good at this. And I remember her saying that you have to be really good to make money, and I thought, wow, I guess that's not me. And so, for some reason, I put that in the box, and I started, I don't know, doing something I thought that would be a responsible responsible career, and moving from that place, moving forward. But I know that I'm not the only one, right? Studies have shown that kids, when they're, I don't know, young, when they're 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, like I was, 95% of them believe they're creative, right? You just like, of course I'm creative, right? Kids are running around with they're drawing on walls, they're doing all sorts of things that, to be creative. And then by the time they're in fifth grade, which is, I don't know, around 11, um, 10, 11, they say only 50% still believe they're creative. So
Mm.
just in that little teeny space of time, there's something that is happening, that is shifting. And by the time kids are in high school, only 5% still believe they're creative.
Mm.
So it's trained out of us, whether it's by other people's reactions. We see something, we start to compare ourselves to other people.
Mm.
We start to think that creativity this is creativity, this is not creativity, and so I am not creative. And what we do is we block, we push aside, we stifle that part of ourselves that's who we are, you know?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I can so relate to that. I'm sure so many people who are watching this can relate to just having it just taken from us. We're it's that one of the things that you said, that comparison is so strong when we start looking at others based on certain standards. What standards do you think, does there tend to be a universal standard, or is there more flexibility with with how it is that we go about doing that?
Well, I'd say for a lot of us, we start to compare our stuff. There's so many different types of art and creativity. I'm going to talk about visual art right now. For example, with visual artists, a lot of us are comparing ourselves to realistic artists, meaning um, we're artists that we draw that look, we have drawings, sketches, paintings that look just like, we do in real life. There's so many different styles, right, of artists. There's even thinking about different, like Picasso, we've got that's very different than Van Gogh, and those are dudes. Then we've got Frida Kahlo, who's all about symbolism, and there's so many other different types, but we tend to compare ourselves to realistic, what we think.
Mhm.
One thing I did, I used to volunteer in my kids' school because they didn't have art. I'm like, what? You don't have art? We need to have art in school. And one thing I did was I would do a PowerPoint presentation where I'd just have different slides of different art. Okay. And if you just have fun and search up installation art, and you'll be like, I'm totally creative, because you'll see stuff that is in museums, that is in installation art, that people are coming and, spending all this money, and all these people are coming to look at, I don't know, toilet paper on the wall, or or actually toilets, like in the middle of just toilets, and you're like, That's art. It is. It is. Or donuts on a wall, or flying wolves, or cars with like their doors open. That's all art. So for me, like if you can start to be like, oh, if that's art, or oh my gosh, perfect examples, a Rothko painting, right? Those paintings are $18 million, and really all it is a square on a canvas, right? I mean, it's an artist, right? But it's $18 million. When you look at that, you're like, I could do that. Why, yes, you could.
I love it. I'd not heard that term before, installation art. So I will definitely be checking that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to be creative, right? So many different ways to be creative. And so part of that is just reclaiming your way, right? Joanna, I know that you have a way with words, right? And I like to write and paint and dance and draw and garden. There's lots of things I like to do. Um, and so part of it is unplugging ourselves from what you were just saying, that comparison piece,
Hmm.
saying like, oh, well, I'm a good writer, you know, it's like you write the way you do. Like you do you. That is the creativity, is you being the youest you possible.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and I noticed in your book where you talked about as far as creativity and what you've been longing for, you included in there, have you ever wanted to start a business? So
Mhm.
I've got a question about that because I'm a workaholic and I do find a creative outlet in technology, like going and doing I'm having a lot of fun in Canva or iMovie or playing around with that. Can you be creative and a workaholic? Or can you be considered, yeah, can you be creative and still working on your business?
Oh my gosh, of course. Yeah, of course, because you're right. A business, you are using creativity all the time. Whether
Mhm.
it's graphic design, like you're talking about Canva. I know your obsession. I like I like graphic design too. So there's that piece of it, developing your website, putting together programs, even putting together what you're going to teach, or developing this interview. Like all of these things use your creativity, use the part of your brain that's like, oh, I wonder if it's like this. It's creativity, as opposed, it's there are different parts of the brain, right? Most of us know we have a right and left side of the brain.
Mhm.
Left is logical. It's based on linear thinking, on what has worked in the past. Right brain is visionary. It's like, I wonder. It's new possibilities, out of the box thinking. And we use that all the time as entrepreneurs, all the
Mhm.
time.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, and can it get like, all right, I already know that it gets for me, it gets obsessive. I get like, I like it gets to a point where I can go to burnout or I can like have a hard time pulling myself away. Is there something that we need to know about that? Because I know you're a big believer in terms of boundaries and taking care of yourself. So how do you blend the two?
Yeah. Well, I share about this in the book, but there's a creative cycle, right? And you know about the creative cycle too, Joanna, because we've spoken about it before. But there's this cycle that's used in creativity, where is you have the energy to create something, then you create the plan or the structure for it to develop, to go into. You then move into flow and support, and then into focusing and finishing. And it's this cycle that happens every single time. And most of us, we have our own creative flavor, and we have parts where we get stuck in the cycle. And
Mhm.
so, for example, you were talking about boundaries. With overwhelm or with burnout, that happens when we haven't set boundaries that give us nourishment, that fuel our energy, right? So what happens is when we get part where we have energy, and we kind of miss the structure piece, and then we go into the support and like the go go go, the creating part, and then we burn out because we
Mhm.
haven't created a structure to fuel us, right? So, for example, I can get really into whether I'm painting or writing or working. I'm just like you. I can get very focused on what I'm doing. And
Mhm.
so part of what I do is ahead of time is I kind of create the space. So, for example, with work, I have, my meals. Like I will work right through and not eat, right? That I have meals, or I have stuff, brought to me, I get up away from my desk. It's the same thing with different painters, right? There are famous artists who in the past, there was one artist who he would on his glasses, he would tape cardboard on the side of his glasses so he could stay focused on the painting. That was his structure, right? So he wouldn't be like, oh, there's this happening, right? That was what he needed for his structure. So
Mm-hmm.
we all get stuck at different places. Maybe for some of us, I mean, for a lot of women, we kind of just jump over the first step of like energizing ourselves. And we're just like, why should I need to energize myself? I should
Mm-hmm.
just be an energizer bunny and go, go, go. No, I know that we need to actually sometimes go in the cave, nurture ourselves, tank up before we move into the actual creation. Because this is also where the ideas, it's like they get really juicy. It's like when they're ready to be birthed, it's like they I'll say it this way. I had two births. One with my first son, where the doctor, it was a traditional birth, hospital birth, and the second one I did a home birth. In the first birth, the doctor was there was a point they're like, okay, you're dilated, push now, right? I'm like, okay, and so we count to 10 and I'd push, right? I did that a couple times and Sage came out. But my second birth, no one needed to tell me to push. Like my body was like, all right. So it's like that way with creativity when we allow ourselves to like seep in that energy, vroom, like the force like comes with us, and we
Mm-hmm.
can't even. It's like we're just taken along for the ride.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me too, a sign that I've lost the structure. I love that how you describe that. I'm not paying attention to the structure is when it stops being fun.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Because then it's like you're moving. Then you, I mean, we are so similar, Joanna, right? We've moved into to-do list mode. How many things can we check off? Not gonna get that, right?
Right.
Check.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. In your book, you say if you are not choosing for yourself, then someone or something else is choosing for you, and that's when life happens to you, and you wake up years later wondering how you got where you are. I love that. I love that quote. I love Byron Katie's quote about life happens for us, not to us, and that reminds me of that. And I'm curious, for you, when talking about choice, like what recommendations do you have for those who are listening?
Mm. Well, I think just even recognizing that you have choice, right?
Mhm.
That you are always at choice. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel that way, right?
Mhm.
It feels like you're taking care of, you're caretaking someone, or you've got something going on with your work or your kids, and you feel pulled, and you feel like you don't have a choice. You have to do it. And what I've learned is that I'm always at choice, and even if it's to the point of, yeah, what am I going to think about this, or how am I going to approach this? There's that piece in it.
Mhm.
But that has actually made me feel a lot more free, right? There's
Mhm.
sometimes I just felt trapped, and I felt like I can't do what I really want to do because X, Y, and Z, right? When my kids were young, I was like, I can't do what I really want to do because I've got these babies, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then, there have been times I can't do what I really want to do because now we're living here, right? But there's always these places where we can move into choice, right?
Mhm.
Where you can choose to, if you want to, be more creative, right? We're talking about creativity. So maybe since you were a kid like me, you've always wanted to write stories. Like, yeah, you're a choice. Pick up the pen and paper, right? Write a
Mhm.
couple lines, right? You don't need to write a masterpiece, right?
Mhm.
That,
Mhm.
but even that choice, like there's something empowering about that. It's like,
Mhm.
I am choosing, I am choosing to do this. And so looking for, if there's any point when you're thinking, I don't have a choice, like, see, make it a game. Maybe like,
Mhm. Mhm.
what? There's like a hidden, like in, I didn't play very much video games when I was younger, but imagine you're playing a video game, right? And they have these back doors, right? They would have you get super secret codes, you take a back door and think about, okay, I'm in this game, I can't see my way out of it. there is a way through this, right? I know that there's choice in here. Where
Mhm,
is that? And start to be like, I wonder where there's choice, or what
mhm,
if there was
mhm,
choice here?
mhm,
And what that does, it just gives you more freedom.
mhm, mhm. Beautiful. I, and I think something that goes along with that is something that you say in the book around intention, and that in that desire for those who want to bring more creativity in their life and to lighten up, setting that intention. You give a beautiful metaphor about intention. I wonder if you would speak more the anchor, the boat metaphor that you give. I loved that.
Yeah, um, the way I think of intention is that universe is amazing, right? Spirit, you have so many options. It's like a buffet of all the things that you can do. And what can happen is if we don't set an intention or claim our desire or what we want, kind of like choice, we get kind of pushed around just on whatever happens. But if you think about intention as it's like you're a boat and you're setting an anchor, right? We live here in Hawaii, and so you go out on a boat, you set the anchor, and then you go fishing, okay? And what the anchor does is it keeps the boat like within a certain area,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm,
intention does the same thing. If you say, even just, now, right now, say, my intention is to be open. Okay, then like you're gonna you're gonna be open. Or my intention is to feel more connected. My intention is to have more fun. My intention is to play. And one of the things I do is I set daily intentions, and I'll even go through my day. Like I'll look at my day before it's about to happen, and be like, okay, what's my intention for this section, right? So what's my intention here with Joanna, and with you is to serve you, to love you, and have fun. Okay, like that's how I'm coming. So you're able to do that, and again, it's like creating, you're co-creating with spirit is what you're doing. You're co-creating your experience
mhm,
instead of just letting life happen.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And then it ties back in with choice, because once you set your intention, then everything is a choice of whether or not you are doing actions that support that intention.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I find that setting intention is really helpful because for those of you that feel like you have too many choices or too many options, intention's great at narrowing the choices.
Mm,
Because it's like, okay, well, this clearly isn't a part of my intention, so I'm not going to do that, right?
mm, mm,
Um, so for me and any most creative, multi-passionate women, having intention is very helpful to keep
mhm.
you moving the direction you want to move. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I know that Denise and her community is very focused on brain health. So, how do you see creativity supporting healthy brains?
Well, it's like half your brain.
Right?
So if you'd like to run like it'd be like driving a car and only be able to go in second gear, right? We want to use all of the brain, right? All the different places. So creativity, imagination, play, Denise with Ageless Grace, and the work that you do in your community, that there's part of what makes it work is the play, right? Is the play, and creativity is the same thing. It's like these neural pathways that maybe we're not using very often. And
Mhm.
so it's like, here's what I'm thinking. We should just add this on for Denise. We should just add this. Is just yes, and create, right? Pick up the paintbrush. Write. Grab your pen. You're already dancing, right? So dancing, listening to different music, creating music. Like when you're cooking a meal, like bring some creativity to it. Like sometimes I'll do this with my kids. I'll create something, their dinner on the plate. I'll put like a little happy face, like with ketchup. They're like teenagers now, but it was like, things like that just to make it fun and playful. It uses it uses more of your brain, right? It
Mhm.
uses more of your brain, and obviously, we want to keep you using as much of your brain as possible, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and then doing new things is, all about creating new neural pathways in your brain for a healthier brain altogether. Um,
Yes.
Definitely. Anything, anything in particular you want to make sure gets said about your book, and what do you want to share about that?
Um, well, there are just a couple things I mentioned in the book. One is about I talked a bit about the creative cycle, right? So it's like it's kind of knowing your cycle, what you're good at. There's certain energies that we work with in creativity to help tap in. Um, so yes, I think I'd like to share a little bit about how, let's say for example, we used and we were talking about how you might not fill yourself up energy wise, right? That there's a creative energy that you can use. We call the lover, right? So you can love on yourself, take care of yourself. Imagine like if you're like the most delicious lover for yourself, right? What would you do? How would you care for yourself? And that will increase your creative flow. We were talking about the other option. It's another example of structure, right? If we're lacking structure, then we get to tap into the creative energy of warrior, which gives us some more of that strength,
Mm.
boundaries, as we mentioned. But there's these energies that live within us that we can access. They're not outside of ourselves. They're not like, oh, I need to learn how to create boundaries. No, there's a part within you that already knows how to do that just fine. And so part of the work is to tap into that part of yourself to anchor and to tap into your flow.
Mm. Mm. Beautiful.
Yeah. And then I'd say the final piece of the book talks about creative blocks, right? Just
Mm.
common things that stop us in our tracks,
Mhm.
right? And so we talked about comparison, that's a big one, perfectionism,
Mm.
procrastination. We don't know that's right.
Yeah, I don't know anything about any procrastination. I don't. Perfectionism, I do.
Right, but we all have our the ones that tend to stop us,
Mhm.
right? There are those. There's also, the ones when you just have a 10 billion ideas and you can't choose because you got so many ideas.
Mhm.
Or yeah, I mean, there's just so many things that can stop us. And so it's just noticing like, okay, this is my flavor. This is how it's showing up. And here, like the book like shares, here's ways to move through that,
Mhm.
right? So I forget there are lots of different ways that the ways that we can be stopped, but just knowing that you can get moving again, right?
Mhm.
There's a way to get moving again. That if I don't know if you were stopped 60 years ago, and you're telling yourself, I don't know, like as Denise says, no, it's never too late.
Mhm.
We'll just move the block a little bit. We're at choice. Let's set an intention to be creative and yeah, see what starts to happen when you open up your
Mhm.
creative flow. Because I mean, really in my heart, I believe that your creative flow is your connection with divine, right? And there are different times, there are ways that it's been like a spigot, it's been turned off,
Mhm.
like me, maybe the teacher has said something to you,
Mhm.
maybe you compared yourself to someone else,
Mhm.
all these things have stacked.
Mhm.
And so the work of Creativity Unleashed is to unleash, to like turn those spigots back on, to
Mhm.
bring you back home to yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, that really resonated with me when I read in your book about the connection with the divine, that that's what creativity is for you. And it's like, wow, yeah, that's when I feel so alive. And I know this book has been in your heart for a while. So I imagine it feels so great to have completed it.
Yeah, I was just sharing. I just wrote about this that um, this book. I mean, it was 5 years, but really, it was 38 years, right? So like,
Mhm.
I'm actually marking this book from when I was a kid, and I said I want to write a book,
Mhm.
right? This feels like the completion of that cycle, and
Mhm.
so, or not the completion, but the next chapter is coming, right? But we have these dreams, right?
Mhm.
That that there's a way to do them now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited for you. And just for those who are listening, some of the things that I love about the book, it's interactive. I mean, from the very beginning, and I love Amber that you say it's like, write all in this book, get it messy, go in there and make it yours. And there's exercises. And also I'm one of these people who tend to jump around in a book. And I love that your book, it doesn't matter where you go. You can start backwards and still get just as much out of it. So I thought that was really, I realized that as I was jumping around, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a big fan of there are no rules, right? So you can play any way you want. Yes, whatever, choose your adventure, choose your adventure. But yeah, I'm just like, well, just like anything, there's a creative way to experience, right? So, there are places that you can color, you can collage in there, you can mash up pages, you can mark things. There are coloring pages, so there's lots of ways to play um, and dream, really.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's very fun. It's inspirational. How can people get a copy of it?
Yeah, you can go to creativityunleashedbook.com and pick up a copy and, well, get creating.
All right. Amber, thank you so much for being here today. And it was really fun to connect with you again.
Oh, I know. And thank you so much, friends. I think I want to leave you with this for those watching is that, yeah, you were made to create. That's part of your DNA. It's part of your genetics. It's who you are. And sometimes I know that we might forget that. And so this is my reminder for you that there's something that's calling you. There's something that's uniquely yours. Um, yeah, that you're meant to create, to make you feel more alive, vibrant. You can create just to be happy. That is reason enough. And if you choose to share and spread, it's going to happen anyways when you're happier because you're already spreading happiness. It happens both ways, whether you're spreading grumpiness or you're spreading happiness. But yeah,
Mm.
spread the love.
Wonderful. Mm. Thank you, Amber. And thank you all for joining Living a Graceful Life today. Denise will be back next week. So have a great week.